Let's break down cryptocurrency deeply.
What crypto markets are more or less like, traditional markets like 70, 80, maybe 100 years ago. So you actually look at the traditional markets and you see them moving across from the traditional markets into crypto markets. What that will result in, firstly, is like a significant increase in the value of BTC. The only thing one could be very, very sure of in terms of use case of cryptocurrencies is definitely stablecoins. So if you adopt a stablecoin, you get the regulatory approval. Very likely that will probably do well.
True. Can any cryptocurrency, for example Ethereum or others, can replace a Bitcoin as a strong market leader?
Let's think this through from first principles. So it goes back to two parts. First part is the fact that...
Greetings everyone, I'm your host, Kirill Ivanov. Today's conversation is going to be truly exciting. We'll explore some of the most important emerging areas in technology. Dr. Anish Mohammed, co-founder of Panther Protocol. You were advisor in Ripple and XRP for 5 years. You were involved in development of Ethereum protocol, right? I really appreciate that you came to my podcast. I want to start from a simple question. What do you think? Who is really Satoshi Nakamoto? And why? Why founder of Bitcoin remain anonymous?
Thank you very much for having me. So just to say the obvious, what I can be absolutely sure of is not me.
Okay.
So, the reason I would say, a person who actually is the founder of Bitcoin would remain anonymous is, I think all layer ones are religions. And every religion would require a prophet or an apostle.
Okay.
And sometimes, if you are, aware of Imam-e Ghaib in the Shia world, their last Imam is a hidden Imam, and it has more, it commands more fear and devotion when you don't know what it is. So, if you know Vitalik, then, you bet less of him in that sense. You consider him more as a human. The way I describe it is like in a religion, you have the followers, which in this instances are mostly developers. They go and learn the language, and then TGE happens, and after TGE is afterlife. They get rewarded in afterlife.
Yeah,
so effectively what is happening is you have an apostle.
Okay.
You need to believe in the apostle, and you need to really put in the effort, learn the language, build the ecosystem, and then TGE happens. In the afterlife, they get rewarded. And the thing is better if you actually are not there present in a human form. So as I would describe it, that's one way to think about it, if you were to think about it from a very philosophical and a religious perspective. Yeah. The other way to think about it is like before Bitcoin, there were no cryptocurrencies in the sense that we're speaking. And the risk of anybody who would create a cryptocurrency would have been incredibly high, assuming the individual or the set of individuals who were involved in actually creating cryptocurrency would have fully understood the implications of what they're doing. They would have surely and absolutely tried their level best to remain anonymous, because the implications of any of the regulatory authorities around the world getting interest in them, or anybody else who's interested in their wealth, a million Bitcoin, absolutely. Anybody would go to any length to get hold of it.
Right.
So the best strategy you have is to remain anonymous. So my advice to you, if you are the Satoshi, please don't reveal yourself.
It's really good thoughts, yeah. Makes sense. So I want to start our conversation from Bitcoin-related questions. So what do you think Bitcoin can be reserve assets for countries?
So a couple of key pieces so everybody's on the same page. Firstly, if you think about crypto and size of assets as in like reserves in nation states, right? If you think about U.S. National Reserve in that sense, and BTC, a good large fraction of BTC should disappear if they were to think about it in any serious sense. There are two ways to think about it. One way to think about it is the traditional finance with the set of all assets, probably a couple of hundred, trillion asset. Has a very strong influence over BTC. So what this means is like, given something happens in the large economy, you immediately see that happening in a BTC. Like you can use BTC as a reference point as to a very early indicator of what is happening.
Right.
But at the same time, if you were like an economy like El Salvador or Argentina or Lebanon, where you are having a run on the economy, then you might want to have something that you can hedge against. And in that sense, if your economy is of the size that you could take a very tiny sum of BTC and hedge your economy against the market forces, and I don't know, maybe IMF actually holding you to ransom, you could definitely have a good leverage of that one. But otherwise, if you are a very large economy like China or US, then I don't know if that's going to be very sensible for you. Let's think this through from first principles. So until 1973, you had a gold as reserve for US.
Yeah, it was linked, but after it was
it was decoupled, right? So, imagine you were to go to Fort Knox and have a look at the amount of gold they have. I'm pretty sure there's a significant sum of whatever that is that's there, right? Similarly, you need to have a significant sum of BTC. What that will result in, firstly, is like a significant increase in the value of BTC, which actually it doesn't really serve you in the purpose that you're trying to do. So effectively, you're causing volatility in BTC straight up. So your chances of actually acquiring it, unless you have already acquired it, and then you say, you know what, we hold a percentage of this much BTC now. If you do signal it to the market, then you absolutely are doing yourself no good service. And if you are somebody who's looking after the nation's reserve, I consider you to be smart enough to recognize that signaling the market might not be the best thing to do in the best interest of a nation.
Yeah, I think so. How you can describe crypto market? What's the main difference between cryptocurrencies, stocks, and real estate in investments perspective?
The way I would describe is the following. So if you were to think of, say, BTC was an economy that's been isolated from all the externalities until the day where the first exchange was born. The moment the first exchange was born, the bridge between the two things occurred. So essentially, the day that you can actually exit from BTC economy to the real world economy, the reverse is already true. And now it's become worse because you have ETFs, futures, and everything else available. So you are completely and utterly exposed. When you have futures, well, there's nothing much you can say. Now, the way I would describe, cryptocurrency versus anything else, real world assets and things like that. So real world assets, in one sense of speaking,
it's a new opportunity.
Yeah, it's a new opportunity and also a well understood opportunity. Real world assets like buildings, houses, retail marketplaces, and other things. All of them have had hundreds of years of legal precedents. What I mean by that is, if you have a difference of opinion, you can go to a court and the court to rule on it. In terms of crypto, a lot of the things are still not very clear. A lot of regulation is not very clear. And, it's kind of hard to actually understand what's going on. If you think about the traditional markets, if you had a time machine and you were able to go back in time, what crypto markets are more or less like, traditional markets like 70, 80, maybe 100 years ago. So, the way I would describe it is, a lot of the things that we see in crypto markets,
we are on the earlier stage.
Yeah, a very earlier stage. You actually look at the traditional markets and you see them moving across from the traditional markets into crypto markets. And as the crypto markets are tiny, right, a lot of the things are still evolving and trying to, perpetuals, if you look at it, and it's very, very tiny. Right. Let's think about insurance and reinsurance. If you think about the insurance and reinsurance markets in the world, typically it's like 2 orders of magnitude bigger than the assets you typically have, 2 to 3 orders of magnitude. The largest of the insurance protocols in crypto is very, very tiny, can't take any of the shocks. The only significant difference is the volatility and the speed with which money enters and leaves the market, in some sense of speaking, because crypto allows people to come in and get out really pretty fast. So, that allows, plus the volatility, the way I would describe it is it should be more similar to some specific markets that you can actually see in the...
Do you really believe that the same volatility will be in the future in crypto market, or it will be
I would
more like sustained?
Yeah, so if you go back in time, and if you were to look at the volatility...
On the stocks market.
Not the stock market, the crypto markets, right?
Yep.
And you can see the massive volatility that was there. At one point in time, 2009, we had Ethereum going all the way now to 90. Sometime in 2020, for a brief period in time, it's $1,000 1,000, 2,500, 5,000 or something like that for BTC, right? That's like ridiculous. That kind of volatility can only happen. That's because of some failures in the infrastructure that existed that allowed this to happen. But if such a failure in exchanges occur, there are mechanisms that will trip in and prevent that from happening, right? So I would expect as the volume becomes bigger and bigger, and you can also think of this the same way, right? Like you have a cup over there, and if you put a small hole in it, it will suddenly go down. Imagine you had a tank of the size of this room, and you put a hole the same size. It'll take a few days to notice that there's a hole, right?
Definitely.
So early markets in crypto, the volume was minimal, and then as volume increases, the volatility would increase, and then I would expect the market has a better ability to absorb the shock. That's what I would describe.
Okay, then market gets bigger. Then volatility going lower.
It's like decreasing. If you were to,
because it's difficult to move.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So if you are ever into either flying planes or flying simulations, what you recognize is when you do like a tiny planes, tiniest of the movements you have, it's like it actually makes a little difference. And if you fly like a larger ones, it's just very stable.
Okay.
So it's like it won't really go over. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay, let's break down cryptocurrency deeply.
Yeah.
How does cryptocurrency fundamentally works?
Okay, that's this is very much in line with how money works in terms of how society values money. The reason I say this is like at any point in time, if you have a run on a currency, the currency is worth nothing, right? The same applies to cryptocurrency.
It's like believing.
It's a complete belief something. It's like if so hash function is worth nothing. A signature on a hash function is worth nothing.
Okay, accepted.
So unless somebody says something, I can send you as many messages as you want, as signed messages without anything, but not part of the Bitcoin graph, and that's worth nothing, right? Just because of the fact that you actually validate that was a whole bunch of ASICs, magically doesn't improve the value of that. It's just because everybody believes there is value, right? Just like gold. I mean, gold has some primary properties for which people might or might not be willing to pay money, which is like one of the best conductors and very ductile. But the fact that it's worth that much, I don't think the value of that will be the same. Correct. Humanity values that, and I'm assuming the same is true of diamonds. I know industrial diamonds are really dark and they are not nice, but definitely the supply of diamonds is controlled by some certain monopolistic practices, and which is very clear. DBS apparently has, I don't know, this is me quoting third parties in that sense. They control apparently the control of the diamonds.
Okay.
So the same way, if you had like a arbitrary, availability to mint things,
right,
I don't know, it would be very different.
Could you explain concept of Bitcoin halving?
Oh, it's a
and why market movement really linked with some halving events?
Okay, so it goes back to two parts. First part is the fact that if somebody thinks something is going to be scarce, diamond, good example, right? If you were in an imaginary world, imagine you run DBAS and you're going to say to everybody, you know what? The supply for next year is going to be half of current year. Yeah, right? And what do you think will happen to the market? I expect, and as you rightly find out, the value of diamonds would go up, right? Because you are the sole provider of this thing. It's the same thing for Bitcoin in that sense. Given everything being the same,
yep.
Two things happen. One is the fact that normally the hash rates is actually on an increasing function, and they all want to have a return on investment in that sense. And that's market sentiments implies typically the price of BTC go up. So it doesn't necessarily go up like instantaneously, but that's the change is typically what it is. And sometimes it's like there's a delayed function. The jump might not be rightly correlated as high as the halving in that sense.
Yep.
I think if you were to go back in the last halving until now, there has been peaks where that is non-correlated with the halving or the time from halving. But, that's typically how it works.
With deeply understanding of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, do you believe that Bitcoin can be a strong long-term investment?
Let's take this in different pieces.
Yep.
Imagine you are a citizen in Lebanon, right? You actually...
Well, Lebanon.
or Lebanon or Argentina or any of the places where have... or Turkey, where there's inflation that's ongoing.
Oh,
absolutely, yes. That's a very good investment.
It will be better.
Absolutely, yes, right?
If you are their currency.
Absolutely. So that is you hedging against the volatility of the local currency. But if you are a citizen of the larger world where you are in a stable economy and your inflation is bounded, definitely there's some upside in having BTC, but the kind of upside that's very well clearly understood where you're absolutely on the money all the time. Doesn't always happen.
Who, in your opinion, have power to manipulate Bitcoin and crypto market?
So the way I would think about this is like a Bitcoin space is kind of divided into three sets of players. One was the developers, and developers I don't think really had the control as much as they used to have.
Yeah, for sure.
2015, 2016 kind of thing. And the other two sets of players are the miners, behind the miners, the ASIC producers. And the way I would describe this, and the exchanges, the way I would describe this is like, can you imagine Jensen, right?
Yep.
NVIDIA, and him holding the power over all AI companies that Elon has to buy him dinner in Nomu, plead for him to give him 100,000 GPUs. That's the same thing possibly happening if you could come up with, if you come up with a new ASIC that could do for a given unit of, electricity, right? For a unit of electricity, you're doing the highest amount of terahashes, then you will have all the miners at your door.
Okay.
So if you are one of them, you could absolutely have the ability to influence it. On the flip side, if you actually have the ability to influence the behavior of a large set of miners,
right,
you could definitely influence what the market value would be. And on the other side, if you happen to be a nation state, and if you just say, as I earlier described, imagine you are the Federal Reserve's chairman and you turn up and say, tomorrow I'm going to buy BTC and BTC is going to be 10% of the Federal Reserve. Hell yeah, BTC is going to shoot through the roof.
We're talking about Bitcoin, and for sure Bitcoin really depending of electricity.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about some others, for example, altcoins, others cryptocurrency, they mostly based on proof of stakes technology.
So let's think this through.
In terms of manipulating.
Yeah, so let's think this through in a simple sense. So, one of the things that we could actually be sure of is the fact that if you do mining in the traditional sense, you still have a probabilistic chance of getting something. It's like taking a lottery, right?
Yep.
If you apply, if you pay $10 and get a ticket, you still have a chance. You have more. You buy more tickets, your chances increases, right?
Yeah.
Staking is much more a linear process. It's like, if you stake, you definitely get it, right? It's not like, that. And the thing is like staking, there are different games you could actually play. And like given staking and some protocols that allow you to do restaking, really makes it really, really messy. You could actually do something in the restaking protocol and exit the whole thing even before your slashing happens in the underlying protocol. So, manipulation in the staking protocols where proof of stake is there could be far more easy in that sense of speaking than proof of work in some sense of speaking. And also, you also have this challenge, like mostly the players which actually do staking are based in nation state and their institutions, and given their institutions and they have licenses, what can happen would be very interesting if the authorities turn up and knock your door and say, now you're not supposed to do X, then that will definitely change the game you're playing. So there you go.
What's your thoughts about Elon Musk's new position in the White House and his DOGE department?
Oh, I think it's a pretty interesting one. Different people seem to have different opinion on what he's trying to do. Definitely DOGE seems to be of all the people who
it already sounds interesting and funny.
Yeah, but the other thing I was about to say was like, I believe he holds a large amount of Dogecoin, and I'm super happy for him to actually have a department named after that. I wish I had enough of Dogecoin to feel as positive as he would be about the Doge department.
As you were advisor in Ripple 5 years, what do you think? Could XRP potentially integrate and comparing with current financial system?
So I want to clarify very clearly and qualify that statement. So I was an advisor from 2013 October until late 2018. So until Stefan left. So the way I would say is like I was mostly focused on the
development part,
more the security and cryptography rather than anything else. Having said that, if you were to think about XRP as a cryptocurrency, you could look at a new initiative to do stable currencies and a whole bunch of them, and even getting an oracle on Chainlink. It actually gives the indication that they're trying really hard to actually incorporate all the other things that are available. So you can only think that it can go up rather than down. Like if you have the ability to link up to other ecosystems, you have the ability to have stable currency. The only thing we could be very, very sure of in terms of use case of cryptocurrencies is definitely stable coins. So if you adopt a stable coin, you get the regulatory approval. And if you have nobody having any regulatory actions against you, the logical deduction, I am no expert here, but the logical deduction is very likely that will probably do well.
True. But I heard some opinions that some of like people comparing XRP and Ripple can compete with Swift. Because like Ripple,
I
more
understand.
like for business transaction.
Okay, yes. So the way one should understand this is like Swift is like an interbank exchange, right?
Okay.
So and mostly that's done in US dollars, right? So unless that's a very big unless there exists such a scenario where dollar is no longer
something happened.
Yes, I don't foresee the immediate possibility of XRP. If there are entities which have small amounts of value and they actually want to use XRP to reconcile, yes, possibly they can do. But if you are a nation state or if you are a very big, the world's 10 largest banks, your ability to reconcile yourself using XRP might be a bit of a challenge because the size of total value of XRP, I would assume, which is liquid and available to do reconciliation, might not be that big for you to do this.
What do you think? Can any cryptocurrency, for example, Ethereum or others, can replace a Bitcoin as a strong market leader?
So this is something I have no idea about, but I would say the following. Because I see like dynamic and dominance of Bitcoin on the market going less. The reason I said what I said is because if you think about Ethereum and you think about Ethereum as everything else that's sat on top of Ethereum, right? The possibility that if traditional markets move into crypto, that can likely happen on Ethereum. If that happens, the total amount of value that's on Ethereum might there's a possibility. At the same time, if a nation state, I can't remember for sure, but I believe Trump mentioned that's a possibility of adding BTC because he actually went to one of the BTC conferences and said, we will add to the currency reserve. If that happens, absolutely, there is no chance in hell that any of the any currency is going to do anywhere near that.
Why are so many projects or companies focusing on building their own blockchains? Why it's like a trend?
The way I would describe it is if you have actually seen the hype cycle from Gartner, if you weren't aware of this, so this is like the Gartner and Forrester, the two well-known research firms. They actually produce quadrants and every and then they have a hype cycle. So you can look at all the buzzwords, and each of the buzzwords go through this hype cycle. Now the latest or the biggest buzz cycle is LLMs and GPTs, and prior to that, one of the buzz cycle was EKPs. And prior to that, the bus was blockchain. And
Okay.
before that, it was cloud and big data. So everything goes through this hype cycle. If you are at the top peak of expectation in that sense, your value will be pretty high, and you want to raise some money, you definitely spread this words which I described, which is a cloud
Yeah,
and
it
big
does
data, or
make
AI,
sense.
LLM, or blockchain. And the more words you have, the higher your valuation will be. So if you're a rational person and you want to raise money and you want to talk to an investor, you definitely want to make sure you have more buzzwords than less.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share your experience when you work with Ethereum?
Oh, I mean, I wasn't part of the Ethereum as the Ethereum core. I was only part of the Ethereum Swan team, just slightly different. Ethereum had like three pieces when we started out. It's Ethereum as an EVM.
Yep.
Then there was Whisper, which was the inter-process communication,
Okay.
and Swarm, which is the file storage. So I was part of the Swarm team. So my experiences are very bounded to that. We do, early days we used to interact with other people. So in the first of the Swarm Summit, I was there. I remember having even the Gnosis guys, like a lot of the other people used to be there as well, like really early on. But then my experiences going back, Ethereum conferences I went to is DevCon 1 in London, and the set of all people that were there were very much focused towards builders, where very few people were not builders in DevCon 1. Having been to DevCon, whatever that was, in Bangkok, I don't know, 12,000 people, 15,000 people, I doubt what fraction of them.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so what fraction of them are really developers and really understand what they want to do or how they want to do. So my experience so far has been like very early on, like in all ecosystems, there are more people who really are interested in it, and some of them go do things otherwise. So it's like, I'm sure you know some of these stories. A lot of the early founders left and built things of their own. So Gavin went and built Polkadot, Charles went and built Cardano, and like the list is long. And there are other people who are less famous who have actually went and did other things as well. So,
When it was approximately?
I think like 2015, 2016.
It's not so long time ago.
Yeah, it's not a long time ago, but 2014 is when the story started.
Yep.
2015 is something that was moving.
Yeah.
Get was there from command line. And 2016 is where you saw something more. And then you saw people looking at opportunities and understanding where they should be going forward. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 2016, 2017, Gavin left, right? And Charles left slightly early. Charles then had Cardano as an MLM scheme in Japan. That's the best of my understanding, because the white paper that I have from somebody who worked with him, it describes that as an MLM, right? Right? So, they all went and did their own things, and they all have their own L1s in that manner. So,
what do you think about what's the future do you see for the Ethereum?
So, Ethereum is an awkward place to be, right? Sometimes you see, they say that if you ride a tiger, it's an awkward place to ride a tiger.
Really?
Let me explain what this means. So when you have Ethereum has a lot of L2s. L2s are in one sense.
Yeah,
and L1.
Why?
Those are L1s. And they're like wolves in sheep's clothes, right? They are all L1s who are acting as L2s, where L1 actually subsidizes your cryptoeconomic security. L1 subsidizes your adoption. And this is me speaking with my view, treating L1 not being treated fairly because you collect the fees, and if the fees is yours to keep, right? So, and the way I would go one step further is like, you could at any point in time turn around when you're big enough to say, screw you, L1. Apologies, my French. I'll be the next L1. There's nothing preventing anybody from doing that either.
Yeah, but what do you think about what's some of blockchains keep most amount of supply in their pockets?
That's literally what I described. So
it's like manipulative.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but like if you think about the L2s keep their fees, whatever fees they collect, right? So you could divide the larger L2s into two pieces. One on the right being the ZK, one on the left being the optimistic ones. So optimistic ones are faster, more economically better than the ZK ones until ZK becomes faster and cheaper. So all you need to provide in an optimistic world is to provide an insurance exit, which is like if you exit the protocol. In an optimistic one, they lock it up for a week to prevent you from exiting in that sense. So if you just provide an insurance for that, then you have a mechanism by which you could beat a ZK in any day. And the throughput is ridiculous, right? So now you have a situation where, I don't know if you've actually seen the Gnosis co-founder's talk at DEF CON. He was proposing, I think,
I didn't see.
128 L2s being, kind of being proposed and as supported by Ethereum. In that sense, I think
it's
huge
numbers.
It's a shard in that sense of speaking. So effectively, you could actually have 128 shards. That's all, each of them being L2s. And the challenge is like, do they have an incentive to play this game? Right? They've already made their money and they are sat there. If you're being really cynical, you can almost think of them as rent-seeking. I don't know if you remember, SushiSwap was an interesting strategy, right? For a moment in time, which is a very successful strategy. But, due to various reasons, Uniswap has gone back to itself and SushiSwap has kind of dwindled down. But at one point in time, some of us really thought that SushiSwap would really kill Uniswap, right?
Yeah.
Because it was really vampiring all the liquidity that was there in Uniswap. The same thing can actually happen. It could be that one fine day, one L2 turns up and has something. Who knows? The possibilities are like, if you're really cynical and you think, Coinbase is out to get rid of Ethereum, it's very possible one fine day Base become an L1, and that'll be, as you could actually see, it's not the first time that an exchange is actually having its own L1. Binance has Binance blockchain, and this is like an even better strategy. The strategy is that you are an L2 in Ethereum, you do everything you want to do, you connect enough of liquidity, and that one fine morning, because you have so much assets backing you, you could literally flip it around and say, hello Ethereum, tomorrow onwards, Base is on its own L1. End of story.
I notice also like zero knowledge technology is extremely growing. Could you, and you also work with this technology closer, could you share what it is exactly?
The way I would describe it, imagine this room that we have here where we are doing the podcast. It has one door, right? So it's like I can make a claim that I can escape from this room without using the door, right? That's my claim. And the way you prove that is you and I go outside and I'm the prover, you are the verifier. You let me inside the room and close the door behind me. And after 5 minutes, you see me outside. Then you know for a fact that my claim is true. But what you don't know, how I escape, that's called zero knowledgeness. Okay? And then there are two other properties called soundness and completeness. Soundness
you
is
escape, but I
you don't know how I escape. How I escape. Soundness is the fact that you know for a fact that I can escape from this room, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't. Yeah. And completeness is like that. Like as long as we play this game, as long as you want, at some point in time, where it's finitely bounded. But I mean by that is like you and I agree, okay, if I do it 10,000 times, some people will be convinced by 10 times, some people by 100 times, sometimes 10,000 times, sometimes 1,000,000 times. But however many times you want this to be done, but at some point in time, you be convinced that I'm doing the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And this is the three pieces: zero knowledgeness, soundness, and completeness. This is the basis of zero knowledge.
And what do you see trends in blockchain industry and crypto for upcoming years?
The way I would think, I'm more a technologist rather than...
from technology side.
So
not from investing.
I can't probably tell you what the investing things are. So technology-wise, you could actually expect. So there's a renaissance of TEs, trusted execution environments. So I think it's almost 18 years or 19 years since I first published my first paper on TEs in 2007. So that's a long while ago. So, and I've been in ZK now for give or take 7, 8 years or 9 years, a full, fullest sense of speaking. You see the emergence of TEs, multi-party computations, MPCs, and ZK, and then fully homomorphic encryptions, which is like FHEs. So the 4 of them are in different stages of development. TEs have been around for a very long time, right? So the first of the standards was early 2001, 2002, probably 2003. And now it has some amount of maturity, and it's mostly on most of the devices. If you have already noticed that the latest Windows versions already require you to have a TE for it to be installed.
Okay.
So if you get a machine, you have a TE in that sense.
Yeah, right.
And ARM actually has a trusted secure component, and so does a lot of the devices. So you have TEs already present. So I expect more of TE being used by blockchains. ZK is still maturing, is still getting there. I expect, the same level of improved levels of ZK going forward.
Okay.
FHE definitely is like a new kid on the block. And we still haven't reached the level of, throughput that one could actually imagine that we can have with TEs yet. And MPCs has been around the block longer than both ZK and FHE.
Let's jump to other part of your experience,
Sure.
Quantum technologies and quantum computing.
Sure.
Recently, Google announced Willum quantum computer. Yeah. And what do you think about current quantum technology can hack blockchain encryption?
So,
for example, Bitcoin
Okay.
SHA 256.
I think let me try explain this in frame of reference to be clear.
Different questions.
Yeah. So I haven't really been a researcher in quantum computing in a longer sense of speaking. So historically, I was offered like a possibility of a PhD position by Brassard, one of the 2 people from the BBA D4 paper, but I couldn't accept it because I didn't have enough funding. You need to get full funding to do a PhD program. So going back to what you said, the real breakthrough in quantum algorithms are 2 algorithms. Peter Shor has an algorithm called Shor's algorithm, which is kind of the algorithm that's most impactful for cryptography in that sense. Most of the public key cryptography that we know currently have a trapdoor function in that sense. So the 2 flavors of this that we have is one is RSA and the other one is like a Diffie-Hellman or DH. So RSA is finding prime factors of a given arbitrary large number, and Diffie-Hellman is like, if you have 2 numbers with the generator of a group G raised to X and G raised to A and G raised to B, and if you get G raised to A plus B, which is C, given C and you're given A, can you find B? So that's kind of the problem that you need to solve. So both this problem, which is called a discrete log problem, there's an elliptic curve variant of it. So, elliptic curves are a set of curves that are unique and that it is weird properties. I'm not going to go into the weirdness of elliptic curves, which is entirely a different topic to talk about. So what I would say is like the 2 hard problems that typical cryptography uses in Bitcoin and Ethereum, the curve that's being used is an elliptic curve BL254. The difficulty in solving that could be made really, really simpler if we were to use a Shor's algorithm. Shor's algorithm, this problem reduces down to finding cycles in abelian fields.
But if it doesn't show algorithms?
Other than Shor's algorithm, there's Grover's algorithm. That's the one that you describe as like the thing that you could use to search through unsorted databases, which maps to solving hash functions. It only has a square root n speed up. Essentially, this is equivalent of collisions in hash functions. So the way I would describe it is like if you had like 30 plus people in a room, you have close to half a probability of having 2 people sharing the same birthday. That's the square root of 365, right? 33 people, give or take. So that's that's the collision function, right? It doesn't really drastically change the security of SHA-256, but it drastically changes the security of elliptic curve discrete log problem, which is the underlying problem that actually provides security to both BTC and for Ethereum and for lots of other people. So, if you tomorrow have a new quantum computer that has the stability and has enough of gates to allow factoring of an elliptical discrete log problem with the kind of security that we are looking at, then yes, we have an interesting problem. But at the same time, what I would say is like that might not be the most optimal use of your quantum computer. So if you were to look outside, you would see there is like 200 trillion, 300 trillion, hundreds of trillions of assets that's out there, and they are all secured using public crypto, right?
Yeah.
So if your phone uses cryptography, everything uses cryptography.
Yeah, right.
Why would you really bother? You go for the ones that's the largest amount of money. If you attack crypto, it's very clear that you have been attacked, and everybody knows you have done it. If you do this to, a traditional mechanism,
But it also will be tracked, no?
no, the thing is like they will take a while for it to be understood, and they can't really track it back to you as fast as on a blockchain. The moment you actually, move the one, going back to the question, the Satoshi's 1 million BTC, if it suddenly moves, very likely it's somebody has actually found a quantum computer could actually factor
Because it's
thing.
visible.
Yeah, man. It's going to be interesting. The moment that happens, everybody would know that has happened. They might just decide to completely freeze it, right? So the community would go, no. Whereas if you are a traditional institution, by the time you're figuring it out, the whole thing would have really gone down the drain already.
Okay, your point is that it will, when quantum computing will come and power will be enough, this technology will enough to hack, for example, any
the current
anyways.
Yeah.
But in the cryptocurrency case, it will be visible in case of attack.
So there's two parts to the story. Generally speaking, when you have a vulnerability, you have a couple of ways to defend. One is to watch out for what is happening. So the watch out part is what I describe in BTC and Ethereum. If there are anomalous movements of very large set of assets, something is happening, right?
Right.
And you as a community have the ability to change things, right? At the same time, there's been some, NIST actually has a bunch of quantum resistant algorithms that's already been there. And if you look at Ethereum's research roadmap, you could actually see a quantum resistant algorithm somewhere in the back of the queue, right?
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, if the risk of Willow is going to be high enough, the BTC guys, they are not like the set of people who really don't care about their money. They definitely care about losing all the BTC they have. They definitely would upgrade BTC to have a quantum resistant algorithm. So I would be surprised if there was an inkling of a quantum computer that can actually do factoring of the size for which BTC and Ethereum operate, there would be a swift change to what the algorithms are in these protocols. I would be willing to bet my top dollar that all the algorithms will be changed in no time, like this.
Okay. Nowadays, Google quantum computer Willow is powerful in the world, or there is others?
This is a very controversial question that you are asking. So there are things that we know and things we don't know. So
Sure.
The things we don't know involve quantum computers or nation state like China. If China were to have a proper quantum computer, it's not in their advantage to tell you or me that they have it. They would actually be decrypting lots and lots of things, and they would, it will be the case like the AGI is existing, like artificial general intelligence. It wouldn't really want other people to know the AGI exists. The same way that if you actually have a quantum computer, your advantage is only at an advantage until the point that somebody figures out you have one, right?
Yeah.
So if you actually go and decrypt or like the break the private key of Satoshi and move a million BTC, hell yeah, you be very much on the radar of everybody else, right? You can't escape. That's the other bit that you need to recognize. You can move it around, but you still have no escape. You will be cut down somewhere. When that cut down happens, everything that has happened will be made very, very clear. You run the bigger risk of actually being exposed. This magical weapon is only as helpful and useful until the other side switches from the algorithms that you have the magical fix to it to a quantum resistant one. If you have a quantum resistant one, your magic no longer works.
What do you think about stage of developing quantum technologies, quantum computing now? It's not powerful enough, right?
Yes and no. So the way I would describe it is like we've had quantum computers for a while, right? The challenge we have had is mostly the ability to have stable quantum qubits, right? So we have actually been looking in two directions. One is quantum error correction codes. So effectively, you have like an M into N matrix, and you want to scale it to a K into L, and a K into L being much larger than M into N. And if you actually had the ability to do error correction, then what you could do is whatever you have in M into N, you can get it slightly more than the stability you have in the M into N. So that is what's been happening. So there's been primary focus on this, and there is primary focus also on error correction. Breakthroughs have been in both sides. So if we find a very stable, qubits, and then we have the ability to maintain them long enough, then we will have a real breakthrough. But so far the breakthroughs has been incremental, but not being. I would say incremental in the sense like. If you were to really look at the Moore's law and were to think about the way that Moore's law has been happening, I don't think we have actually had the same kind of Moore's law progress in quantum computing in that sense of speaking. If that was the case, we would be very worried very soon. But who knows? At some point in time, it might enter the exponential curve.
Who knows?
So the normal progression is like every 18 months you will have for the same chip size, you can have twice the size of components, and effectively it's mostly based on the energy dissipation for the components in that sense. That's the limiting factor. But it is kind of stagnated for a while now. So I think it was stagnated since the 12 nanometer node. So we have 7, 5, and 3. So it's a 3 nanometer node that we are actually looking at right
It's
now.
really difficult to understand. Also interesting fact, I heard a speech NVIDIA CEO on last conference in Las Vegas, and he mentioned like quantum technology is not developed enough. And after that, like stock market of all quantum computing going down on 30-20% down.
You have to think of this with a cynical lens on yourself, right? So
easy to manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, he has $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
And remember what I said to you. So mining BTC could be considered equivalent of a European call option, right? So you put the money in, and you can turn it on, and you can turn it off any point in time. And AI, in that sense, is very much in the same category as European call option. You have the assets.
European call option, what is it?
So you have some assets, and you can sweat it out. At any point in time, you want to switch it off, you can switch it off, right? Okay. So your cost is the sunk cost, and the rest of it, you don't lose anything more, right? So that's the kind of opportunity you have.
Okay.
So AI is in the same category as you're mining BTC in one sense of speaking. Your advantage, like if you don't have an H100, your ability to compete with anybody having a large language model is limited. So your chances of competing in BTC mining doesn't exist beyond a point where you don't have the latest per unit of electricity highest hash function, right? If it doesn't matter how big your scale is, but the underlying factor is given 1 unit of electricity, how many terahashes or gigahashes, terahashes to be more precise, can you actually do? The same thing applies to AI. Given 1 unit of electricity as a given temperature, how many operations can you do? I see him he could very well be the CEO of Bitmain.
Could quantum technologies accelerate to achieving AGI?
As somebody who has been interested in existential risk for a very long time, so I've had a charity called EthicsNet registered in the UK, looking at the ethics of AI for the last 11, 12 years now, right? So, I am probably very biased, and I am very concerned about where the AI is going. That is this,
We'll also discuss a little bit later.
Yeah, so it's like, it's an open problem. And the way I would describe what happens if quantum computers get good enough to actually enable AI to progress really fast. There are some algorithms that apparently have some advantages. And if that's the case, that the progression that's there. Right now, the progress in AI is kind of limited. So if you were to look at the last few papers that's come out, I don't know if you have listened to Ilya's talk as well. So, the size of the models and the gains you have seems to have tapered off. There's this thing called Amdahl's law, which is like, the relationship between the larger the number of nodes and the output you get out of it, as in like the number of operations. It will be linear until you reach a knee of the curve, and then it kind of tapers off. There's a suspicion that we are close to that. So that's one thing there. It is very possible that has more to do with the computational limitation, because a lot of the computations that we do for machine learning are linear algebra operations, just matrix multiplications, to be very clear. So that's a lot of computation and sending things across. It is very possible we have a quantum computer, and some of these things could be made really fast. Again, in some sense, some of the multiplication, the quantum Fourier transforms, QFTs, are very similar to matrix multiplication, a loose sense of speaking. So, I don't know. I mean, also, if you think about the number of tokens, if you're looking at it in that sense, the tokens we have is quite large, it's in billions. So, just think of one qubit being represented somewhere. I don't foresee, the quantum computers being large enough to represent. Challenges for other things would be utility function for having a quantum computer to do things. The first of the things will be breaking stuff, and then there will be building things, and then somewhere along the line it's like you can actually combine the two to do certain things. I hope. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we all hope.
We hope.
What's the fundamental principles behind a quantum computer?
Yeah, so the way to describe it is like, there's like, whenever anybody talks about quantum computers, there's this Schrodinger's cat question. So the way I would describe this is as follows, and I will take the example of Grover's algorithm. Grover's algorithm is the algorithm I describe, which actually gives you the hash function thing. So imagine there's a corridor. There's a corridor of unsorted set of Schrodinger's cats in that sense. If you were to just look at each of them to the end, the state space is collapsed in that sense, right? So you pretty much have the situation where even though there were multiple states, all of them are dead, right? So the same applies in that sense. So effectively, you have this ability to collapse the state. So if you have a tree, the tree, n-ary tree, what that means is like a node of a tree has n other nodes attached to it, and it would collapse so that you will end up actually having like one set of nodes being connected, and that could give you what I call the shortest path in that sense.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
Let's discuss AI technology. So you have experience working in AI ethics.
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah, and what do you see as the major ethical issues we face today with AI?
Wow. Okay, I'll give you some intuitions so that you get the idea. So imagine I was born in India, you were born in Russia. We have very different cultural norms, right? So in my country, in India, I'm from the part of India which is called Kerala, and if I meet you as a person, in my tradition, I have to take you home and give you food, right? So that might be offensive to somebody else in some other part of the world. So that's the difference in ethics, right? So this is the variation.
Yeah, I think it's same in some of the country.
Yeah, some countries. It's just you can have same thing. You say the same thing to two people. One part of the world is very acceptable. Other part of the world is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, right.
So this is the difference in variation of ethics in that sense.
And we need to
have a consensus on this thing, so that we can actually talk to machine learning model to say this is a good one, right? This is a big problem with that, right?
Yeah.
So when you look about a machine learning problem, so that's a classic set of problems we currently have, like the trolley problem and things like that. And there are different sets of solutions available. And when you look at all the solutions, it's very hard to encode what literally average humanity represents, right? Because of the variations. So it's a non-trivial problem. There's so much of context involved and so much of variation involved, and actually finding a representation that represents average humanity is a non-trivial problem. And to really compound this problem, most of the thinking has been done by a small minority. I'm not wanting to be a DEI representative here, right? Diversity and all this stuff. What I'm still saying is, like, if you have literally 8 billion population globally, 1.5 billion Indians and 1.5 billion Chinese, if these two people are not part of the so-called average taking process, it's a skewed process, right? So you can't actually have the whole of European population or Europe plus the US telling us. So combining all of them, right, there's less than a billion, right? Half a billion in Europe and 300 million in the US together is less than a billion, right? They don't represent a significant fraction. It's 12.5 at best, right?
Yeah, it's controversial task.
So there you go. This is what I'm kind of saying. Like, ethics in that sense is going to be tricky, and I don't think this is going to be that easy. The variation is huge. So we haven't really found a way to represent ourselves.
Okay, but we understand that there is a problem. But
we understand there's a problem.
But who exactly can solve this? I mean, like, who work on some AI companies, or like?
There are lots of people working on this.
Or
there
like
are lots
some
of
scientists.
There are
universities.
Yeah, there are lots of people in universities. There are lots of institutions, private research institutions that are there. So Machine Intelligence Research Institute does look at some of the problems. There was Future Humanities Institute and FLI also, Future Life Institute. A lot of the other problems, Center for Existential Risk. A lot of these institutes actually look at some of these problems. There's a global set of researchers that have interest in this topic, and they all work on this. It's an ongoing race.
What do you think about current solution on AI market? If we take, for example, ChatGPT by OpenAI, Grok by Elon Musk, Claude by Anthrophic, and Gemini by Google and others, who do you think is leading in this race?
Oh, that's a very hard problem, and it's pretty hard to predict. And I clearly don't have a crystal ball.
How you can rate this?
I can give you some intuition. So if you think of O1, ChatGPT version O1, apparently they were measuring the IQ of that to be around 120 IQ, which is pretty good. Most of the population,
what's the IQ?
120.
120?
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah, that's what they claim it to be, right? So, I can send you the link to a paper that actually describes this. And actually, Imad Mushtaq, the co-founder of Stable Diffusion or Stability AI, he gave a talk. That's when he brought this to my attention. He's a good friend of mine. So the question is, like, how is each of the different ones doing? It so happens that, Perplexity, Anthropic, Grok, and all of them are kind of slightly better in certain tasks and slightly not so better in other tasks. But there seems to be definitely getting better than an average human by a good margin. So one standard deviation smarter than an average human in that sense. That's O1 doing, right? So which is pretty good. And the next iteration will be definitely O3 will be a lot more smarter than that. So
yeah, for sure.
So 2 standard deviations smarter than an average human, which is a good place to be. And and a lot of the tasks that a lot of the people are doing will disappear in that sense.
There are only difference how companies train AI models, right? That's why some aspects can be better in one AI.
It could be, So the thing I want to highlight is, other than enterprise data set and the private data set, everything else that's been around has been trained, right? The people who could actually have a significant advantage could be possibly Google, because they have a very large access to a lot of emails, everything on YouTube, right?
Okay.
So if they were to take this and use that to train, again, there are ongoing cases happening between New York Times and so-called OpenAI, and there are other cases open in different places. So, the advantage you have in actually having had a model trained with larger set of data set will be definitely higher than the one that is lesser data set. I mean, that's the very basic assumption based on unusual effectiveness of data, the paper that was published a while back.
Okay.
Jeff Dean and the rest of the guys published. And then they had a second iteration of the paper called Unusual Effectiveness of Data Revisited. And they kind of agreed that the data could be the mod. And it could be that, synthetic data, synthetic data gets to a point where you can't really have any advantages of having real data.
Okay.
Then computation will be the only difference.
What's the recommendation you can give for us how we can incorporate AI for daily tasks and business?
It's quite straightforward.
It's like simple questions for all conversation.
It's you turn on your audio version for ChatGPT, let ChatGPT talk to you. I mean, if you are like a bit more sophisticated, find one of the there's a Python framework I forgot the name of it top of my head. So, there are some frameworks, agent frameworks. You just create those agents. Previous to this was LangChain, but LangChain has fallen out of fashion. So, get one of these Python frameworks, write some agents, and then train your agents on in an ideal world, you should actually train your agents on a local LLM on the stuff you actually have. And then you pretty much have a multiple assistants. So each of the agents could actually be like I'm just making this up as we go along. Just imagine each of your agent has an IQ 121, and then you have finitely many agents working for you. It is incredibly powerful. You can actually have so many of these agents looking after so many of your tasks, and you have agents on top of agents, which is like a agent operating system, managing all these agents, and you could be the masters of the universe, masters of the agent universe.
It's exciting. By the way, I also noticed like AI agents, it's big trends, and a lot of companies build these different agents. Yeah,
I mean, it's two-way thing, right? As I described previously, AI agents is actually on the Gartner hype cycle, right?
Yeah.
If you want to make some money, you could just go to pump.fun and create an agent thing and create a token, and you...
Yes, I noticed like some of funds creating like AI agents. Manage their like capital.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who has actually done it, but then if you are a fund and you really believe in the agentic framework and you think your framework is better than everything else out there, definitely that's what you should do. If you don't think that's your best shot, then don't do it, because you might just end up actually falling flat on your face.
What's the framework we can use for like creating our own AI agents?
So I can't remember the name of the Python framework.
Is it in open
These are all open source. There are lots of open source libraries that are out there.
It's need to develop a coding or like it's accessible for like...
there are no
for everyone.
There are no code agent frameworks that you can actually use. So you really don't need to.
And you just do setup and
you just drag and drop and absolutely, and then you could pretty much get things done.
I think like we're going to other stage of questions. What is your vision for next 5 years? And do you see like some potential black swans?
Let's answer the first question, second question first. So, black swan is when you actually don't know the probability of a particular event, and suddenly that happens, and then everything goes to... Okay, so what is the biggest black swan that we could actually see is the AGI event, right? There's like a series of those things. So you could have it's not a real true black swan.
But do you believe it comes soon?
Yes. It's the probability estimates of all these things. An estimate of AGI or estimate of quantum computer actually coming early. That's just tomorrow. There's a breakthrough, and we have the situation. That's an interesting situation to be in, right? We'll be scrambling to move all the assets across to different places. So we are not left penniless, right? Yeah. And similarly, if AGI happens, the best bet might be pack all your shit and go to some place really, really far away where there's no communication and nobody comes there and there's no resources.
Yeah, exactly.
No interest for AGI to come there and get hold of you.
Not so far ago, I discussed also with my friend, like when AGI is come, like economic extremely changing.
100%.
We should to prepare.
Like... Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? Like the way I would say is like, think of it this way, right? you have seen how politicians are manipulated. Like you can see what is happening in the US.
Correct.
You can see in the Second World War what Hitler did. So, can you imagine a very, 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 very smart AGI taking the position of them? And you can only imagine they don't have to lift a finger for humans to destroy themselves. And if that is what the optimization function for them is, then humans are in big trouble.
It's true. What do you think about what's approximately can be average IQ on AGI?
What we know based on O1, and if you estimate it in the next iteration to be 130, 140, my estimate is like between 140 to 160 would be like a pretty good, well-trained AGI in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay. So you have an impressive academic background. How important do you think learning and educate yourself?
Okay, I should give you my background in that sense, so you probably understand it. So the way I would describe it is I went to a med school, so first degree in medicine, medical doctor. Then I wanted always to do cryptography. A long time back, a very long time back, I came across a magazine. It's called Science Today. My dad used to subscribe. And there's this guy called Martin Gardner. He used to publish puzzles, and he used to offer rewards to people who solve it. And I saw RSA 129 on it, which was the RSA 129 bit. And he offered $100 to actually solve it. And as a kid, when I saw $100, you have to imagine I am from Kerala, and $100 at the point in time was significant sums of money for
good amount
for a kid. So I was like, how hard can this be? And that's where the story started, and the story is still ongoing. So in between, there's an episodic instance of me being sent to med school where I learned medicine, got my degree, and got out of it, and then went to grad school to do cryptography. So that's the story.
Definitely different size of degrees.
Yeah.
What are your recommendation for learning better and faster? What's some tips?
The mechanics of how to do retention, how to retain what you want, is being quite well understood. There are a couple of books that are there that actually tells you. There's this most recent book I was looking at, how to rapidly gain the skills. I forgot the name of the title.
Okay.
I can definitely send it to you after this.
Okay.
It's on my desk. I've always been very keen to improve my skills. So, probably when I was in my teens, I started this, and I was continuously. It's a continuous approach. Like I really believe in actually having a wider set of mental models. So if you know Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, I'm a great fan of Charlie Munger. I've spent an enormous amount of time understanding mental models. And there's a book on mental models by this guy, Shane, right? He has like 4th volume. The 4th volume is in arts and economics. So I have the 4th volume. I've gone through all the 3 volumes. And there is also another of the book on mental models. Actually, this is the guy who is the founder of the privacy search engine. I forgot the name of it. So that's one of them. He actually has one book. And there is also one other guy, Scott. He actually had a model thinking. The course was available first on Coursera. I took the course like probably 10 years ago. So this is like, this is how I would describe it. I spent a lot of time thinking about things, trying to understand. Shane Parrish, that's the guy's name. He actually has mental models, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, and then volume 4 is out. Volume 1 was the generic one, then the physics one, there's a chemistry one, a biology one, and the arts and thing, right? So it's quite interesting.
I guess there are a lot of information.
Oh, yeah, it's nothing much. It's like pretty straightforward. I'm sure you remember.
It's like some recommendation and some practice to
absolutely.
use.
You need to understand how to think from first principles. You need to understand a bit of probability. Like, you need to understand as much as you can, and you try to put things together. So when you see something, you recognize instantaneously what this is something you have seen from other places. And there is a very interesting book called Calling Out Bullshit, right?
Okay.
This is also a course offered on Coursera by professors from University of Washington, and that's a pretty good one, which actually gives you, in the age of full of misinformation, your ability to filter reality from BS. So like as I said, a whole bunch of things, like understanding mental models, building your mental models,
Right.
and also at the other end, trying to understand. There's also another book called Nobody's Fool. And it's written by two psychologists describing how people are fooled. So, calling bullshit in the age of big data. And, Nobody's Fool is the other end of it. And you actually build your pile towards the middle, and somewhere in the middle, wherever that middle is, you will have a bunch of mental model and enough of cynicism that you'll be able to smell BS from a distance.
No, it's very interesting, but does it difficult to incorporate as a skill?
No, I think like all things, you were asking me about chess. I am utterly shit at chess because I can't be, how could I say, I can't be bothered to sit down and play chess for that period in time. So I can actually be bothered to actually read things. What happens effectively is this. So whenever I travel, my iPad is full of video lectures. So I have possibly 100 gigabytes of lectures that are there. And similarly, I have close to, I have possibly 10,000 plus physical books. In my house in London, I have them. And during COVID, if you ever see any of the interviews, you can actually see me sat in front of my real books. So in Dubai, I don't have all of them. I only have a small subset of books. So the way I see it is like when I'm traveling, I'm forced to read things. And I can admit to you, I actually read the Bitcoin white paper on a flight because, even though I was on the cryptography mailing list, I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'll read it some other day. So, that's the way I use my time on a flight. Things I need to read because when I'm in the lounge, and if I don't have to get on any calls, I try read. And once I'm on a plane, I watch lectures, and I normally do that, and podcasts as well. So it's like 1.5, somewhere between 1.5 and 2, depending on whatever the material is.
It's really interesting. Yeah. What do you think are the top 3 skills people should focus on the future?
Okay, most important skill that I would say right now would be how to learn to use the tools that you have from the AI side. That's, as you were asking, how to leverage LLMs, how to build agents, right? That will be the first skill set.
We definitely need to get from you this framework.
Okay, so that's the first one. And second thing I would strongly recommend is try understand, or build your tool chest of mental models, right? Which I was describing, right? And the third thing I would really recommend is like social skills. So I know coming from me, that will be
social skills.
Yes.
What is it?
Because social skills is the ability to interact with a fellow human. Because if you were to look at the FHI report on
social. Okay.
Yeah, so FHI report on what jobs are going to disappear the fastest. I think so far you don't know any agent that has actually the ability to, yes, it could be a therapist, but, the kind of things that you require, human-to-human interaction and the human warmthness in that sense is still going to be there for a longer period in time. I think, if you have to suggest anything for anybody, I would strongly recommend that you improve your social skills. Okay. But if you have like mathematical skills of math, physics kind of skills that are exceptional, maybe there might be some advantages for you. If you're an average person and you don't stand a chance of being a Fields medalist, just kidding, right? Fields medalist and equivalent to Nobel Prize in mathematics. If you don't think you're that category, you're better off focusing on the social skills, because for a very long period in time, I am hoping that will be of high value than all the rest of it, because all the rest of it is very likely going to be disappearing for AI.
It's interesting. Makes sense. What is the one key message you'd like to share with audience?
So the thing I would say is, in the future is here and is unevenly distributed. So if you're worried about AGI, I don't know for sure, but even if it's there, it might be uneven. And you probably need to recognize the world is not going to be fair. Access to resources for all humans might not be the same going forward.
Okay, thanks. It was really a valuable conversation.
Thank you, and
Thanks
thank you for having me.
coming. Yeah.